brought up a good point that we'll talk more about in our second piece. But for me, that has a lot of fundraising implications. Is that try to understand what you believe. I think that is one of the most important things you can do before you start. I know we need money, but if you don't know what you believe and why you believe it, it really is harder to have other people catch your passion, whether that's a grantor, or whether it's other people that you want to come help, work in the garden. If you don't have something beyond growing food and giving it away, even though that's awesome, if you don't have something more than that, like how you think about people, how we think about people as, like in the Lord's Acre we say, there are many types of hunger, everyone is hungry for something, and everyone has something to give. That's something that's powerful for people. That's something that goes way beyond just growing food and giving it away. That says, this is how we see the people in our community. We don't see them and try to perform things that keep people separate. We try to do things that bring people together. And like I said, we'll talk more about that in the second talk we do today. But I wanted to mention that because if you're going to do funding, you really do need to understand what you believe and what you're trying to do. And part of that comes from connecting with the people you're trying to serve and bringing them together. So we decided a long time ago we weren't just serving the people who are hungry, we're serving the entire community. Because if we didn't do that, a lot of things would happen. But one is people who have food would see themselves as intrinsically different from people who didn't have food. And we did not want to continue that kind of belief system. So it's those kind of things which I could expound on all day. That's what really impassions people when they hear that. So when what we do for fundraising is we do some grants. Tim Richards was in here from CFWNC. I don't know if he slipped out, but they gave us a grant to match an AmeriCorps position. So we had that happen, and we had actually did a community survey. That helped us understand, we don't want the Lord's Acre coming in here going, this is what we need. We wanted to understand, what does the community want? So we did a survey, and you can do that on the cheap. You can do that without a grant, but just understanding what the community wants is helpful. And I think it's also important to grantors that you listen to your community. That I think they really care that you partner with other people, you're not reinventing the wheel, and that you listen to your community and you're not going in there like, I want this. Well, yeah, what about everybody else in your community? But grants, as you'll hear later, are often great for getting going. They're not as easy, like what they want to do is start a new program. So if you have a lot of things going and you get a grant, you have to just do more things. So that sometimes makes that difficult. So what I found I like better is, once we've gotten programs going, is local churches will often have, or organizations or businesses will often have a charitable component. Like I want seeds from somebody, I go online, look down, find their charitable component, apply for it. You can do it at Lowe's, you can do it anywhere. Just find out where their charitable component is, what you have to do to comply. And if you're in their community, it's a great thing because they're saying, I'm supporting this endeavor in my community, this store or whatever is lined up with that. I also like, we do have some businesses that sponsor us. That's not the main thing. But I love going to churches because churches are saying, we're tired of just giving money to something far away that we never see. Here we can come out and we can work in your garden, we can donate money, we can bring musicians, we can bring you food for your work night. So they become fully involved. They really understand where their money's going. And they love that because then you come and speak to them, the organization or the church, and you can say, this is what you've helped us accomplish this year. Or see this greenhouse? This is what you helped accomplish. And I think people are looking for that. They're tired of donating money to something that's like, oh, it's a good cause, but I'll never see the results of what I've done. We do community, we also do a letter writing campaign. Spring and fall, we do a letter writing campaign. One of them we've learned to put a planting chart on the back of because people don't tend to throw away planting charts. So if you can have some bit of information and wisdom on the back of whatever you're sending out, that's really helpful. And people have written us this year, are you going to do that again? Because I really need your planting chart. So we found, somehow we found that was a great idea.
When people will come together for those meals and share a meal, there's such power in that. When people come together and do shared work that is too much for one individual to do. We can raise a barn, we can build and erect a church, we can build and design gardens that have so many benefits that cascade outward and come into the garden, just like this asset mapping, that are based on the idea of growing food and hopefully sharing food. But there's so much more. Individual personal transformations happen in a garden all the time. We've all witnessed it, both within ourselves and within the people that we share the garden space with. Community garden changed my life. It's become my life's work because I accidentally stumbled on a little article in the paper saying that they were giving away plots in the Silva Community Garden, and I was excited. So I joined, and I had no idea about food insecurity or hunger relief, or even that this garden was donation based. I didn't even really know what that meant. I live in the trees, in the shade, I rent. I didn't have space to garden. I wanted to garden, so I joined. And over the years that I've been involved in community garden, it has changed me amazingly. There is a huge amount of resources on the internet and funding opportunities for starting a garden. I'm going to tell you right now, starting a garden and finding funding to start a garden is easy. It's really easy. We can help. We're going to give you some ideas today. Your available resources, cooperative extension, all this stuff is very easy. Starting a garden well so that it is able to sustain itself over a long period of time is not so easy. And our second lecture this afternoon will talk more about sustaining it. But really, when you are doing your planning, if you can plan for that long-term goal, you're going to be able to find whatever amount of money that you need. And it can be a large amount of money, or it can be a small pot. It doesn't matter. The all-volunteer Silva Community Garden, we have a $500 or $600 a year operating budget. I mean, no big deal. You know, it is all volunteer group, and so there's some issues with that in that there's no management and oversight. So people have to step up, and that's a wonderful thing, and it's a great model, and it's successful. How do I know it's successful? 9 years. It's over the hump, so we're rolling. As long as we get to stay in that land, and we'll talk about that in a minute, then we're rolling right along. But there are so many grants and stuff for finding it. But really, one of the reasons why grantors like partnerships, it's not just this little hoop that you have to go through, like using 10-point font and 1-inch margins and all of those little hoops that they make you jump through. But partnerships build in diversity. Partnerships build in resiliency, and partnerships are what really create that community that allows a garden to really be successful. And so I am so lucky in this wonderful community in Jackson County where I live in, that I have amazing, resilient partnerships for developing this garden, and I'm finding new ones all the time. And every group and every asset in my community that I speak to about the garden, we're really excited about it, and you'll find that, especially in springtime. Who's not excited about gardening in springtime? Come on, even if you don't.
Adam, I wanted to
Yes, please.
something. He brings up a really important point in that, his Silva's been operating for 9 years on $500 to $600. That's really, really reasonable. So keep in mind that you don't have to have a lot of money to get one of these going. And think about, the size, start small, then grow. Don't go for your big picture right away. Go for, a few plots right away and have a successful year, because success makes you want to do it over again. And that's going to give you sort of a sense of how much you need to get started, and then you can grow, and then you can look for more and more money if you want. But if not, you've got models that exist right here that operate on a very realistic budget. So
That's right.
Think about.
That's right. And then, when you're spending grant money, you have to spend it. But once that's gone, those relationships that you've developed will be your assets. You can, local landscape companies, a lot of people are willing to help. And so you can find donated materials. You can find that people will be very ambitious in the springtime and start flat after flat of tomato transplants. And then, wow, I'm really going to plant 50 tomato plants in my garden? No. So we have a picnic table in the Silva garden where plants just magically show up, or seeds just magically show up, and we all know that we can take from that. So those kind of things, but really it's so important to start your garden well-intentioned with the big vision, but not trying to build that big vision all at once. The Cullowhee Community Garden, we're gonna have room for 65 plots, 15 feet by 30 feet. And we're offering our first round of plot adoptions at this spring, end of April, beginning of May. And I've really got my fingers crossed and really hope that I get about 20
And keep in mind,
applications.
that is almost as big as the Black Mountain Community
Right.
Garden, and we started out in 2004 with 12 members.
Right.
I now have well over 60. But that took this many years to get there. And
Right.
I have people who come and tour the Black Mountain Community Garden, and they're just in awe, and they just are overwhelmed, and they're like, we can't do this. Of course you can't. It took me took the community, almost 10 years to get there.
That's right.
So it's really important to keep that in mind.
That's right. And you want to start small and grow into it. But I'm like a lot of people in this room, I'm a big vision kind of guy. I have a fully formed, detailed, dreamt of in the hot summer sun in my garden vision of what I want this Cullowhee Community Garden to become. Am I going to be in line and only will allow it to form to that vision I've created? No, that is not a model of success. But I have it detailed and worked up. I've dreamt it. And now we're on the ground working it, and it's going to be amazing.
So let's move on to
and I think